Historically, the Druid class has been one of the most powerful classes in Hearthstone, and some people are starting to believe that the Druid problem needs to be taken care of. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick thank you to everyone who's been watching my videos. This has been my most successful month on YouTube by far, and it's all thanks to you guys for enjoying the content. So if you believe that I've earned your subscription, please subscribe to the YouTube channel to be notified about any of our future uploads. Now let's talk about the Druid problem. Originally, the idea for this video was to highlight Aggro Druid and its success on the ladder. But because the playstyle of this deck is super linear, I wanted to focus more on the play patterns and some of the problems that I'm noticing in the Druid class. When you queue into a game on ladder and you see a Druid, you have absolutely no idea what you're in for. Its flexibility as a class is very notable because an aggro Druid deck has historically been very popular, as well as ramp Druid, which has been the main problem that a lot of people have had with this class since the very beginning. But token aggro Druid, mid-range combo Druid, gigantic ramp Druids to play the biggest minions possible, this class has a ton of playable archetypes. Where if you look at a class like Priest, aggro Priest has been a thing like 1 or 2 times. But now with rogues being added into the mix as a possibility if you see a Druid, a lot of people are just getting fed up with seeing Malfurion on ladder altogether. And I'm not here to necessarily come up with answers to every single problem that the Druid class has, but it makes me very sad that when you compare Druid to a deck like Demon Hunter or Warrior, for example, in this current meta, there's just so much going for Druid and absolutely nothing going for a lot of other classes. This problem will definitely be solved down the line when we get new expansions, but for now, I feel like we just need to address Druid because this class is popular and powerful for almost all the wrong reasons. And this is coming from a person that loves to abuse Druid mechanics. The first mechanic of Druid that we all know and love is the ramp mechanic. Everybody's familiar with ramp Druid because of how popular Guff is right now. Guff has one of the highest played and mulligan win rates in the entire game right now. And a discussion that has been very prominent in the Hearthstone community has been centered around Guff's hero power. If any changes need to be made to Guff, I think the most important change is denying a full mana crystal for the hero power and instead replacing it with an empty mana crystal. The reason for this is because Druids are incentivized to use the hero power every single turn. When you gain an additional mana, it really doesn't make that much of a difference if you start at 6 mana versus 7 mana when you're already on turn 4 and you're already being given more mana than you should be allowed. But if you force Druids to have to invest in making a worse turn in order to get a better turn in the future, then I believe that Guff's main problem will be solved. However, there is a case to just nerfing the mana cost of the card. Recently, when I was casting a Max League series, there was a particular game where Guff was increased in mana cost because of double Far Watch Post. And this is a hilarious way to see if mana cost changes really do go the extra mile. Because in this particular game, there were several instances to where the player was able to play their 7 mana Guff, but they had to do another line in order to keep themselves alive. And this is the really hard line that Druid has to walk on in order to be balanced. Because Druid's main weaknesses are aggression and gigantic minions that require hefty removal. But now with cards like Scale of Onyxia, Insatiable Devourer, as well as Smothering Starfish, Druid has a lot of tools in order to deal with almost everything. And having access to 20 mana is a great way to be able to answer anything. And I'm not even necessarily opposed to changing the mana cap on the card to 15, because I believe that 20 mana is just really fun, and changing it to 15 is kind of a weird number in my opinion. But the main reason why I'm okay with Guff giving the current mana cap that he has is because you should be able to work for it in order to have a massive payoff. Kind of similar to what we're seeing in this game, the Guff is not able to be played, so you can't get that high roll. The only time that this becomes a problem is if 20 mana becomes the norm every single game. And when you are incentivized to use the hero power every single turn for almost no drawback, that's when this becomes problematic. But having the possibility for 20 mana crystals is not a problem in my opinion, unless you're playing Druid and Wild. In which case, Twig of the World Tree is very busted, and good lord, that's a lot of mana. But as long as the weaknesses of Druid keep Guff from ruling every single game, then I believe that Druid is honestly a fair class right now. Think about the last time that a Druid didn't play Guff against you, and how awkward their turns must have felt. Druid is constantly walking along the line of doing the plays that you need to versus the plays that you want to. Because unfortunately for the Druid class, when you get hit hard, and you can't really prevent that damage from hitting you every single turn. That used to be the price to pay to ramp up mana crystals. But not only are Druid cards working in a perfect storm in order to give you the most insane ramp that we've ever seen, you have the most consistent clears to be able to keep you alive. And then you have an ultimate payoff that you can play that doesn't even commit your entire turn, which is another reason why I feel like people are tired of seeing Nathria, because it should be the one card that you play during your turn. But when Druids do a whole bunch of other stuff and then just slap down Nathria, this card can feel sometimes unbalanced. But at the end of the day, Druid needs to be able to sacrifice its proactivity in the mid game in order to activate its ramp potential. Because there isn't a problem with ramp or with removal in general, but when you combine them both, it's a very toxic strategy. The second problem with Druids is their token-based strategies. My god, are they frustrating. I cannot tell you how angry I get whenever I see an Iron Deep Trog hit the field on turn 1, and I'm playing Rogue without a backstab, or I'm playing Druid as, well, any Druid. It's really frustrating to me as a player that the only playable aggro deck in Top Legend is literally the most aggressive deck that you can make in the game. However, one major plus side to this deck is how cheap it is. It literally costs less than one legendary minion. And the success that you can have with this deck is very notable. It has quickly become the most popular deck in the last week since the balance patches. And honestly, this deck is the perfect answer if you're really annoyed with Guff Druids. This has been the main reason why this deck has been so successful in Top Legend, although its mage matchup is probably not the best. However, since you're an aggro deck, you can always rely on the outs of your opponent drawing high-cost cards and not being able to deal with your early game strategies. And one card that's really enabling the success of Aggro Druid is Herald of Nature. I would say that this is probably the problematic card in the deck to where if anything is going to get nerfed in the future, this is probably it. This card just enables the perfect 1-2-3 curves that automatically win games. And especially decks like Ramp Druid, there's no way that they can clear this. Even if they end up playing a Starfish, you still have another one waiting in the wings, as well as potential for Pride's Fury. It's something that I notice all the time is that Aquatic form is usually going to find your Herald of Nature or your Pride's Fury, so I try not to play this card until I at least have 3 mana. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that one of the most powerful aggro decks is a Druid deck that doesn't care about what your opponent does, and a combo deck that doesn't care about what your opponent builds up to, because it always has an answer. No matter how you phrase it, it always seems that Druid is doing what it wants to at the expense of the other player. And last and certainly not least is the main reason why I feel like the Hearthstone community is tired of seeing Malfurion on ladder. How the hell do you mulligan against this class? Whenever you mulligan for an aggro druid, you have found a ramp druid. Whenever you mulligan for a ramp druid, you found an aggro druid. And when you find that player that was using ramp druid a couple of hours ago, you mulligan for ramp druid, and then bing, pow, it's a miracle rogue. No matter what you mulligan for, you are not going to be happy when you play against druid. You pretty much have to mulligan for your proactive game plan against Druid, because the last thing that you want to do is to keep cards that are specifically good against Druid, because you're never going to get the right matchup for it. The only way to prevent this Druid problem is unfortunately another wave of balance patches. I don't imagine that aggro Druid is going to be touched because aggro strategies are very much struggling right now, but the easiest change that they could make is nerfing Guff. Changing the hero power, I believe, is the only change that needs to happen, because making the card 6 or 7 mana may not change why the card is problematic. I really do believe it's the incentive of using the hero power every turn that makes Guff absolutely broken. However, Maestra Rogue is a little bit tricky, because no matter what, there's always the possibility that it's a Maestra Rogue, especially in a metagame where Miracle Rogue is one of the best decks playable. The only way to fix this problem would be to change Wildpaw Null's interaction with Maestra. But if you want my personal opinion, if we do this, Rogue is going to flatline. My main problem with Rogue is their consistency in card draw with Edwin. I am fine with the interaction with Wildpaw Null and Maestra being a thing because of the deck restrictions required. But if I'm being honest, I'm very annoyed of seeing Wildpaw Nulls come out on turn 2 for 0 mana, especially when you haven't even played a Thief card to begin with. Overall, I think that the Castle Nathria meta was amazing in the first 2 weeks of its release, but these balance patches did not deliver in the ways that I would have hoped. The buffs really did not do too much to shake up the meta except in Rogue and in Demon Hunter. The nerfs that we received were not really to the cards that were the most problematic in the meta, and the powerful archetypes that have followed after the balance patches, I believe, are a worse experience than what we used to have. With the previous patch, we saw 6 classes seeing legitimate play with Rogue on the rise. And while I do agree that Warrior, Demon Hunter, and Paladin definitely deserve some buffs and debatably even more buffs down the line, the main problem with this expansion is that archetypes are there, they're just not solidified. And I believe that this problem will be alleviated once we get a mini set as well as more expansions, because there's still an entire year left to go where these decks can rise to the top. But at the end of the day, I think we could all agree that if there were less druids seeing play right now, we'd all be a lot happier. And if you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for even more deck guides, video essays, as well as collaborative works. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and we'll see you for the next one.